Are we live? All right, thank you. Welcome everyone to the April 17th meeting of the Special Districts Advisory Committee, San Diego, LAFCO. Welcome to the, as I've just been told, self-proclaimed
I didn't say that.
avocado capital of San Diego County. We are at Fallbrook Public Utilities. Thank you.
Advertising.
It's not false advertising. Of the United States. All right. Welcome to.
We can be whatever. It can be whatever you want it.
It's like the world's greatest.
Really depends who you ask.
Welcome to the avocado capital of the world. And with that, can we please have the roll?
Kimberly Thorner,
Present.
Jack Beebe,
Present.
Ann Baldridge,
Here.
Paul Bushy,
Here.
Jeff Eka,
Here.
James Gordon,
Here.
Tracy Largent,
Present.
Al Lau,
Here.
Lindsay Leahy,
Here.
Hector Martinez,
Here.
Rachel Mason,
Here.
Dave McQueen,
Here.
Marty Miller,
Here.
Joel Scalzitti,
Here.
Mike Sims.
Here.
There is a quorum with all members present.
Thank you for that. Full house. All right, with that, I'm gonna ask Jack Beebe to do the honors for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
With that, we are on to agenda review. Don't have any changes to the agenda. We have two big items, the work plan and the Carlsbad-Encinitas Part 1 MSR, and then an update from Fallbrook, and then we'll save committee member reports till the end. With that, we are on to open expression. Is there any member of the public that would like to address the committee on germane topics that are not directly a part of the agenda, either in person or online?
Yes, so Kurt Warden. Is that agenda? I'm sorry.
Okay,
Okay, let me check online.
thank you.
Okay.
No one's
online.
online. Okay, and so we do have a speaker for an agenda item
For 5A.
for 5A. Perfect. Thank you. With that, we are on to the consent calendar. We have 3 items on the consent calendar in your packet. Would entertain a motion on consent.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Bushy. Do we have a second?
Second.
Oh, that was hard. Was that Mr. Sims?
Yes.
All right, second with Mr. Sims. Any discussion on consent? Right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstain? Okay, we are on to our first item, which is agenda 5A, the adopted draft work plan and budget for 2026-27. Do we want to take the staff report prior to public comment? Yep, I see a nod. Okay, with that, thank you.
Can you hear me? Okay. Good morning, everyone. Chair Warner and committee members, Joel Barilla and on behalf of staff. And today before the committee is the second step required under statute for San Diego LAFCO to formalize its game plan for the upcoming fiscal year 2026 to 2027. The first step involved the commission taking action to approve on a tentative basis 2 related policy documents through a single resolution. So these include the work plan before you today, which is intended to direct LAFCO staff resources, and then the budget before you today, which is intended to fund those directed resources. The commission tentatively approved both documents at its March meeting, and we are now in the formal public review and comment period, which includes presentations to both the commission's advisory committees. So with that in mind, today's item provides the committee an opportunity to submit any formal requests, comments, or recommendations for staff to relate to the commission before it takes final action in May. So to begin at a high level, the draft work plan and budget largely reflects a status quo approach with targeted enhancements and 3 key themes. So first is the 30 project work plan remains, with most of the projects reflecting active efforts rolling forward into next year. Second, the operating budget increases modestly by about 3.4%, or roughly $90,000, primarily due to a proposed new analyst position and a pre-planned cost of living adjustment. And third, while apportionments increased by 18.7%, that number is mostly driven by the decision not to use reserves as an offset in fiscal year 27, rather than by a major increase in spending. Now, turning first to the work plan as detailed in the agenda report, the approved workload largely represents a continuation of the commission's proactive approach in addressing LAFCO's duties, interests, and related administrative responsibilities. So this includes continuing to identify 30 special projects organized in priority across high, medium, and low priority tiers, with 10 projects in each category. So projects being rolled forward are taking higher priority placements and include, among other items, 7 municipal service reviews featuring agencies such as the County Water Authority, the Metropolitan Water District of Southern California, SDAC, and healthcare districts. New activities are generally reflected in the medium to low tiers and include an MSR on the South Coast region and a legislative proposal, a special study, and other administrative projects. Within these categories, I'll flag that staff anticipates making a few adjustments as we move forward toward the final adoption. So including adding back the Encinitas MSR, adding back in the homelessness service white paper, both of which we anticipate that will take longer to complete than originally expected, removing the study involving Escondido and Rincon del Diablo, and then consistent with recent commission direction, adding review of policy L107, which involves procedures undertaken by staff where jurisdictional disputes surrounding a pending or current jurisdiction change proposal. So separately, we also include a bullpen list of additional projects that may emerge during the fiscal year, depending on commission direction and staff capacity. And one item worth flagging there is that the commission may also choose to explore the potential addition of a 9th member to LAFCO. And this is not currently included, but it is a type of governance related topic that could arise during either this year or in future work plans. So now that we've reviewed the work plan, I will turn to the approved draft budget. So overall, the budget also remains largely status quo, with a total approved budget of approximately $2.9 million, which reflects an 8.2% decrease overall from the current year. Notably, however, that decrease is primarily driven by the wind down of grant-related activity and on the non-operating side. And at the same time, the operating budget increases modestly to approximately $2.77 million, reflecting normal operations along with few targeted enhancements. Now, within the operating budget, the largest change is in salaries and benefits, mainly due to group insurance, and as mentioned earlier, the proposed addition of a new analyst position and regular compensation adjustments tied to cost of living increases. However, this is largely offset by an unexpected savings in SDAC for the retirement account held by the County of San Diego. And on the other hand, services and supplies decrease, largely because we are going to lower consultant usage in certain areas. So overall, the budget reflects a modest effort to build internal capacity while reducing some reliance on outside support. Now, this next slide is likely the most important from a funding agency perspective, particularly with respect to apportionments. And while apportionments increased by 18.7% overall, only about 3.4% of that increase reflects actual operating growth. The larger share, which is approximately $317,000, reflects the commission moving away from using reserves as offsetting revenue, which had been done in prior years. So the increase is really about returning to a more sustainable and transparent baseline rather than signaling a major expansion in capital operation. Now, by way of context, and with the invitation to go further into detail after the presentation, under LAPCO's reserve policy, the agency is expected to maintain unassigned reserves equal to between 4 and 6 months of operating costs. The draft budget is consistent with the policy and reflects staff's recommendation to stop relying on unassigned reserves to reduce annual contributions. That approach helps protect the agency's long-term fiscal position. Now, this next slide is intended to illustrate two structural dynamics that are converging. First, as the operating budget grows over time, the minimum reserve threshold also grows. Second, LAPCO has used reserves in recent years to help offset costs, and in doing so, help keep apportionments lower, which reduces flexibility over time. And accordingly, the draft budget for fiscal year 27 assumes zero use of reserves, which helps stabilize the budget moving forward. And I will also note that during the commission's discussion on this item this past March, some commissioners expressed interest in exploring limited reserve in usage, though that was not an unanimous view. So in closing, staff is recommending the committee today consider the approved draft work plan and budget and provide staff with feedback ahead of the commission considering final versions in May. We also invite the committee members to submit any individual comments and or recommendations by April 24th this month in advance of posting the May commission meeting agenda. So with that, committee members, that concludes my presentation, and staff, we are here to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair.
Thank you. We'll go ahead and take the public comment before we move into questions from the committee members. I have Mr. Kurt Warden who would like to speak.
Chair, members of the committee, thank you for boarding the Lower Sweetwater Park Protection District. I want to key in the fact that my comments are based on the published materials that were available on March 30th. So I briefly want to highlight a statutory issue in the proposed budget and apportionment methodology that I believe is important to your advisory role. Government Code 5631381 is not discretionary and requires two things. Only net operating expenses may be apportioned, and counties, cities, and independent special districts must each bear 1/3 of those costs. In reviewing the draft budget, our district identified two structural issues that affect compliance with that statute. First is the apportionment base includes items that are not net operating expenses, such as reserves, contingencies, discretionary studies, including non-operating items, increases in the total cost pool before statutory 1/3 shares are calculated. And second, the proposed apportionment does not achieve the required 1/3 allocation. Independent special districts are shown roughly at 40%, while the county and the city are at 30% each. So major factor in is the data set that's used, and that's controlled by the controller. The statute requires the use of the state controller's special district's annual report. However, the tables in the draft budget appear to rely on reconstructed or average data sets that differ from the statutory report. One example, the district was included in the apportionment pool, even though the district wasn't in the controller's database. So the controller has corrected that error, but still the data set that must be used is the one without the district in it. So for your purposes, I would suggest the committee request that the budget limits the apportionment based to the true net operating expenses. That restores 1/3 allocation required by Government Code 56381 and uses the unaltered state controller data set without modification for it. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments. Does staff want to address that 56381 and the 1/3 apportionment based on information from the state controller? Because I'll be honest, that piqued my interest.
Yeah, so Keith Simons for the record, executive officer. The apportionment process is laid out in government code. We can go into detail, but all is well with respect to the data that is presented to you. The speaker is addressing misconceptions and readings of statute. We've done our best to address them in the past. But the numbers that you have before you are the numbers. County, once we adopt a budget, we present the apportionment numbers to the county. The county in statute is responsible for the apportionment process, not LAFCO staff. But I'd be happy to speak to any other items.
Well, it did jump out, that the increase, the bar chart that showed the increase, I think 39.9% of the increase was going to special districts versus the county and city. And so maybe I'm drawing a parallel that shouldn't be drawn yet right there. Oh, it was 39.9. Is why the disproportionate increase on special districts versus city and county in San Diego?
So, and thank you, Chair. So we're speaking not about the overall apportionment.
But the
We're
percentage,
talking about the percentage change. So that's two different topics.
Yep.
So, but for the benefit of the record, so, under the state formula, because we have a special seat, designated for the city of San Diego. Our proportionment in San Diego County is 28% goes to the county of San Diego. 28% goes to all of you as special districts. 28% goes to 17 of the 18 cities, not including the city of San Diego. And then 14% in change goes directly to the city of San Diego. If you add those numbers up, you get 100%. With respect to the increases, last year, the commission agreed to provide $317,000 total offsetting monies and reserves to artificially lower the apportionment. In addition, because of our unbudgeted but appreciated contribution from Port San Diego, all of the special districts proportionally got $105,000 credit portioned out amongst all of the agencies that pay into LAFCO. So the special districts increase, not apportionment, but the increase reflects a higher amount because you are not receiving that $100,000 one-time apportionment credit from the port joining the ranks.
so the port only helped us for 1 year.
1 year, but it was appreciated. So with that, I'll just double down on what Joel mentioned. With respect to the budget, we do very much view it as a status quo with some targeted enhancements. In particular, now that we are getting our sea legs a little bit better in delivering municipal service reviews, we see that there is a benefit in moving towards hiring a staff member on the municipal line, and to help absorb what essentially is about $110,000 investment on a weekly basis, salary plus benefits. We're proposing taking about $80,000 out of what we typically use for consultants to help backfill and fund that in-house position. The net result is, plus some other inflationary cost increases, is about a 2.5% increase in our operating costs, which is below inflation, but nevertheless does get added to the apportionment in the increases that all of you are looking at today. The commission did approve the draft budget before you last month, or actually back in March. We are scheduled to go back to the commission in a few weeks on May 4th to the final version. Certainly in comments, either as individual members or as a formal group, they directly not the commission. And then just because it is part of the presentation on the work plan itself, it is an interesting comment. So Joel brought this up at the end. It's not in the work plan, but there are at least 3 meetings in the last 6 months in which the topic has come up. about the actual composition of San Diego LAFCO and our voting members. And right now, we have 8 voting members, right? 2 from the county, 2 from special districts, 2 from at-large cities, and then 1 from the city of San Diego, 1 from the general public. It just so happens that we have increasingly seen a lot of split votes of LAFCO. When we, at least on one occasion, came up with a 4-4 tie. That has informed at least a few of our commissioners to ask out loud whether it does make sense to add a 9th voting member to the commission. Now, there's a lot of challenges with that. One is, who would that 9th member be? How would it affect the funding formula? If, for example, and I know this was actually contemplated a few years ago, if that 2nd seat were going to the city of San Diego, presumably we would assume that they would take on a greater share. However, we also know that there are members of the community who want to see a 2nd public member. Well, that would work so long as the other funding agencies agree that that 2nd seat go to the public, even though the public is not directly paying to LAFCO. So we bring this up because whether it's in the work plan or otherwise, it is a fundamental change that's being discussed amongst the powers that are at LAFCO. So be happy to go over more details about the work plan or the budget, but we are looking for your discussion or input. And again, whether the committee members want to provide comments as individuals, great, or certainly have the option, as Chair Porter knows, to provide formal comments as a group. And I'll just stay up here as the comments come.
I do have a question. What is the current statute or government process for how votes are currently apportioned? Are the votes on LAFCO, you mentioned 28%, 14%. Is that how the votes currently are on LAFCO and the representation? Because I would think if special districts only have 2, but yet we're a third of, we're a little bit lower. And so I'm curious what the government.
Yeah, so LAFCO does not have a weighted voting system per se, so each of the 8 votes have a value of 1. There was, and I'm not sure when LAFCO went from having the more standard voting structure in which there's, 7 voting members, 2 from the cities, 2 from the county, 2 from the districts, and 1 from the public. At some point, I believe in the 70s, the city of San Diego, through special legislation, added themselves with a dedicated seat, and that included a change in the funding formula. And again, that is a negotiation that occurs outside the LAFCO halls.
Is it legislative then?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so there was legislation that added a special seat for San Diego and added their special apportionment.
Yeah. And there's a few other counties in California that have that dynamic. I believe Kern County has a dedicated seat for the city of Bakersfield. Los Angeles County has actually 2 dedicated seats. One goes to the city of LA, one goes to the city of LA. They agree eternally to give it to someone in San Fernando Valley, but it is unique.
So why don't we take questions? Oh, yeah, go ahead, Mr. Sims.
Question for you, Keen. Is the commission looking for a recommendation from this group on where we think should fill that 9th seat or not?
Well, so it's not in the work plan, so it's not an ask of the committee, but for the benefit of being proactive, it may be something that you want to digest and think about, because if the commission chooses to put it in the work plan beginning in fiscal year 27, right? So on July 1st, I imagine things will start moving fast. So certainly by your next quarterly meeting, we would want to come back and at least give you the opportunity to formally weigh in on it. But since it's out in the public, if that's something that you'd like to at least offer up some thoughts, we'd be happy to take that to the commission to the May 4th meeting.
Seen a ton of nodding heads on adding thoughts, so why don't we start with you and then we'll move to Mr.
The reason I
Stelzner.
asked that question is because my thought and opinion is, we all serve the public, I think that should go to a second public seat. My
I'm
thoughts.
sorry, elected seat or a public?
We have
public
elected or appointed, because that's a
Public.
elected by the, so that's an interesting thing, because as of right now, I believe the last public member was appointed by the rest of the commission, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
What's
Somebody who doesn't represent any specific entity paying into it, just a.
Should they be elected by the other members versus appointed by?
Elected by all the members versus appointed by the current commission are two very different things.
Question.
Yes. Does anyone have an opinion on that?
Just a quick question, is that the reason that the ninth member, the public member doesn't have a vote? Is that, because you have 9 positions, 8 votes, right?
We have 8 positions, each has a vote, and that includes one public member
Okay,
who's appointed, who's right now Bridget Browning, and has been appointed by the other 7 members of the commission. 2 county board supervisors, 2 special district members.
right, I thought you had said that you had 8 and then there was a public vote, I wasn't sure if they.
My apologies, so the public member is part of the.
Okay. Sense.
I think elected makes more sense, because if it's appointed, you run into the same problem of how that appointment gets made generally by a smaller contingency in terms of who decides who the public member is.
Agreed.
Who would be the voter?
The district, like we do everything.
Everything, but even the cities, the county, the special, that is how I thought the original public member. Like, we all voted, was it, I'm trying to remember,
Well, the commission members vote on it, and by extension, they represent. The 2 special districts represent all of you, so by extension, yes, but not direct.
so I think I'm hearing. If we were to make a recommendation, a couple people saying that the 9th seat should be an elected public member.
Yeah, public member elected by the
Public.
members.
Public member,
Which
public member elected by the members.
I'm sure the commission will really like.
Is there anyone?
Would that by definition be somebody who is not an elected official then, for instance, represents special district?
Actually, so just to define, that's a good question, so how San Diego LAFCO defines criteria for a public member, it's rather expansive. The only guardrails are that they are a registered voter, not just a landowner, but a registered voter in the city or the county of San Diego. That they are not an employee or an elected official with any of the city's special districts or the county. So one carve out is that the anyone who is an elected member of the county's planning groups is eligible. And that actually is in effect right now. The Fallbrook planning group chair, Eileen Delaney, is actually the alternate public member of that LAFCO.
Any other discussion on this 9th public member?
You don't really need any sort of recommendation from us now, right? It's too early.
No, I think that what I was going to do is share with the commission that we raised the topic, you received input in the offered consensus, not formal, was if you're going to go down that path, the instinct of this group is that it should be a public member elected by the other members of the commission.
Would anybody want to make it formal?
Yeah, I mean, I can make that motion if you want us to make a motion.
Sure.
Can I just have a question? Yes, thanks. So does every seat on the LAFCO commission have an alternate?
Yes,
So this
Hmm?
new 9th
Oh,
group
good.
would also need an alternate, so would that person also get, if the proposal was to elect with that?
I don't,
Would be
Yes.
included in?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I imagine it'd be similar to how they do the commission.
Yes.
The alternates are all elected,
Yes.
correct?
well, so they're not, so the only, these are good questions, only the special district members are actually elected to LAFCO. All of you proactively get together every 2-4 years and cast your ballots on those who run for the commission representing special districts. The other seats are appointed, so the mayor of San Diego appoints their member, the county board of supervisors appoints their members. So.
So it would make it a little complicated from a LAFCO perspective.
Well, but I think the spirit is what they want to hear, and you're telling us that, hey, if you're gonna go down this path. The seat would, it would make most sense for it to be a public member, and I think we would appreciate that input.
So I have a motion for if there is a ninth member, public member elected by all members. Do I have a second on that? Mr. Gordon? Okay. All those in favor of that motion, say aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? Okay, so we made it official. Any other questions on apportionment? And then also second, any other questions on budget and work plan? Yes.
Keen, I have a question about, so is LAFCO confident, well, I guess they are because it's in the plan that an analyst, additional analysts can replace the expertise from outside consultants. I mean, whether that's water, fire, wastewater, can one individual replace that expertise across the?
So no, and we are contemplating that now by still budgeting and making use of our outside consultants, just not to the degree that we have to date. So the anticipation is that we would bring in an analyst one, first and foremost to help us with our bread and butter work, which is our proposals, and then get cross-trained by existing staff as well as our consultants. Right now, we have a very good team. Some of them are here in the audience of consultants, about 5 that regularly work with us. Mike Stein helps us with fire protection, Tom Kennedy on utilities, Patrick Buteller and Adam Wilson on kind of policy issues, and Christina O'Rourke with environmental planning. They are all anticipated and budgeted in this document before you to continue to work with LAFCO, albeit with a little less hours put into the budget, if you will. But I think, Jeff, your comment is important. LAFCO staff are generally generalists, and we are increasingly dealing with topics, whether it's SANDAG or hospitals or even, water, that the topics go beyond a generalist, so you need to have those resources. So we are budgeting, and I think the number this year was about $550,000 in professional service costs. I think we're dropping it down to about $450,000. So we're still acknowledging we need the technical expertise, but the idea is, as we're getting better with the service reviews, more of that work can be done by a staff analyst. And frankly, it's staff hearing from our commissioners about rating in consultant usage.
If a follow-up question, that was the motivation for that change, long-term budget savings, because it doesn't seem to appear that that's true this year. Is it,
Yeah.
will it in the future then result in savings, or was it more an effort to keep this in-house for other reasons?
I would say it's a little bit of both. I will say that in the 8 years that I've been on the commission, right? So when I started in 2017, it was a different set of commissioners. And at the time, as all of you are experiencing, the pension was a much bigger consideration, right? Ever really hadn't taken hold yet. And so bringing in staff in 2017 meant, at least in the minds of elected officials, a longer term commitments to salaries and benefits. Well, now, I think that pendulum has somewhat adjusted. And as we show here, the cost to LAFCO to bring in an entry level analyst, we're ballparking at about $110,000, about $70,000 pay, about $35,000 in related benefits. That would have been a much different number back in 2017. And in particular because of where the county were contracted with SDAC the funding contributions that was expected of the agency. So just for the benefit of filling out the picture, a unique aspect, let's see here. Here we go. So because the county has is expected to achieve a rather important milestone in their funding arrangement in meeting a certain funding threshold with SDAC, our retirement costs are actually going down quite a bit, and that's not just at LAFCO, that's a proportional number for all county departments. And for the benefit of the here and now, we're somewhat budgeted as a county department, even though we're a separate legal entity, contract with county benefits and the like. So the fact that our share of proportional retirement costs is going down by almost a fifth helps the commission bridge that mental gap between, well, if we're now getting close to being a wash between using consultants and hiring staff, I think we're now at the tipping point where they're willing to go down the path of 9th analysts. And then, of course, there's increasing constraints about how you can use consultants, right? There was a bill a few years ago, the Gonzalez bill that kind of reined in to protect consultants from perhaps otherwise really being employees, but being treated as consultants. I think it was AB 1 something. It was kind of known as the Uber bill, but it impacted all consultant
Employees
jobs.
versus subcontractors.
Yeah, so that constraint is real. So the combination is staff is certainly supportive of a 9th position. While hoping, and right now they approved it in the draft form, hope the committee would at least support it directly or otherwise, still have the money to bring in people like a Michael Hanneman or a Bill Fulton as needed to help us in our MSRs.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a follow-up question.
Yes.
So this builds on Jeff's questions. Would this additional analyst be able to expedite or speed up in any way the MSR process?
Presumably, right? Now, I say presumably because I wanna be honest, like, it's taking us longer than we would like. And I know it affects our agency that we work with. Part of it is also adjusting to every time we start an MSR, there's staff changes on the agency side, and there are things that come along, but yes, the goal is. Once we get through our initial round of reviews, and we're only about a quarter into it, right? We've only hit kind of Julian, Ramona, Escondido, Oceanside. We're making our way down to 5, but we've got 3/4 to go until we make a circle. But certainly that's my commitment. That's a big conversation during my performance reviews, I can assure you that.
I have a follow-up comment too, as a general manager, you wanna control costs, but you also wanna deliver the service. And I do have a concern, having worked with all the consultants that you've had that are specialty and cutting them 27%. When you look at the top 10 MSRs, you have water authority, you have healthcare, you have fire, you have the oil, sand, like all the big ones coming, and you had these specialty, they're all specialized, the consultants in giving you advice. I worry that an analyst one won't be able to help you with those big ones immediately, a couple of years down the road, once they know the system, but I'm concerned about that huge of a cut affecting the resource ability to have that special expertise that's required for everyone around this table.
Yeah, no, it's a legitimate concern, and so I would offer up the entry level analysts would not be expected to do that. What will be expected is our more senior analysts already on staff will take a greater role. And we're still going to have in our budget, and we're still under contract with the general persons here today, Mike Stein, Tom Kennedy, Adam and Pat. But you raised the clear issue. We are making a known trade. We are trading in resources that right now have been able to bring in a guy, people like Mike Hanneman, Bill Fulton. We'll still be able to do that, but just not at the same level. I would offer up this year, next year will be a test of whether it works or not. And if not, that's on me and we'll have to adjust.
I did also notice an increase of $80,000 for legal. Is that just broken out or is that a new cost?
So that's, yeah, thank you. So up until, well, actually, right now, and since the time, our professional services account has always treated that as a catch-all for consultants and legal. So what we're doing in the document before you is we're just breaking out legal costs at the same amount. We've budgeted about 80,000 over the last few years, so we're just extracting that out.
Any other questions on budget, work plan, priorities, apportionment? Right, so we obviously advised on the ninth member. I think there were a couple concerns, but I don't think it was a consensus on losing the specialty of the consultants. Anything else from anyone? Okay, all right.
With that, thank you for your
Thank you.
feedback, and then we will report back at the next quarterly meeting as to what the commission did. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Joelle. Okay, with that, we are on to item 5B, draft MSR on Carlsbad-Encinitas, part 1. I can't wait for part 2.
Well, good morning, Chair Warner and committee members. Thank you for your signals for the record. And project manager for the MSR on the Carlsbad-Encinitas subregion. So we're also doing, as mentioned by Stein and Tom Kennedy, who helps tremendously on this. So today's item serves as an opportunity for NAPCO staff to share with the committee a recently published municipal service review for the Carlsbad subregion and the 2 agencies directly subject to commission oversight, including the city of Carlsbad as the primary focus for City of Carlsbad and the Carlsbad WT, which is the primary focus for the community today. So as we go through the MSR in its current draft form, LAFCO staff welcomes the committee's input on 2 related fronts. One, the scope and content of the specific document relative to the goal of providing fair and balanced independent evaluation. And 2, any opportunities going forward to further improve future MSRs through more respective expertise. So before diving in, a brief note on context for our newer members as well as members of the public that may be watching. Municipal service reviews are a core part of LAFCO's manual. They provide a comprehensive independent assessment of how well local agencies are meeting current and future community needs. MSRs are used to support sphere inputs, updates, inform boundary changes, and where appropriate, initiate potential reorganizations. So for this MSR, the broader regional review covers both the Carlsbad and Encinitas subregions. Today's report is part 1, covering the city of Carlsbad and Carlsbad MWT, and part 2, addressing the Encinitas subregion, covering those districts on the screen, will be presented separately at a later date. But both agencies being presented today have completed their required 60-day administrative review, and their input is reflected in the draft for you. So before getting into the findings, I want to spend a few minutes on the bones of how this report is structured. So the premises and assumptions that underlie the analysis. This is an area where the committee's perspective would be genuinely valuable and be a welcome discussion. So this report is designed as a foundational document. Consistent with commission direction, this MSR is intended to serve as a long-term reference that LAFCO will periodically draw on and build upon, not just a one-time snapshot. So that orientation shaped a deliberate investment in documenting each agency's historical evolution and assembling an extensive catalog of demographic, service, and financial data. LAFCO expects to revisit the report and its assumptions approximately every 5 to 10 years, consistent with the legislature's timetable and plans. So as for the scope, who and what is covered, while numerous agencies provide services in the Carlsbad subregion, This review focuses exclusively on the two under direct jurisdiction, city and CMWD. So other agencies operating in subregions such as Encinitas Water District and several regional entities will be evaluated under separate reviews on LAFCO's role as site schedule. And equally important, the report reviews most but not all service functions provided by these two agencies. The executive officer has focused the analysis on functions most relevant to each agency's support purposes and influence on growth and development. So for Carlsbad MWD specifically, this report concentrates on rural water service. With recycled water, their recycled water function reserved authority dedicated for regional recycled water evaluation. So looking back at the data window, the report draws primarily on a 5-year window for fiscal years 2019 through 2023. And these dates were selected based on the most recently available audited financial statements at the time that the analysis was commenced. So the underlying method is straightforward. Recent trends provide the most reliable foundation for near-term projections. What happened in the last 5 years is the best guide to what's likely in the next 5. And some data, such as population and housing demographics, extends back to the 2010 census for additional context. And then looking forward, the report's planning horizon extends 5 years out from today, so to 2031. And this matters practically for the commission, which will evaluate any sphere of influence, boundary change, or out of agency service during that period against the findings in the report. And proposals deemed inconsistent with these findings will require additional supporting analysis, either through an addendum or a new MSR, before the commission can act on this. So as for how population data is sourced in the demographics, population and housing estimates are derived from Esri data, which draws on American Community Survey data or census data. This has become standard practice for LAFCO's reviews because Esri's mapping tools readily align with both city and special district boundaries, ensuring demographic consistency across all jurisdictions under review, rather than relying on individual agency estimates or standard projections, which don't always map cleanly to distinct or to district services. Lastly, the report focuses on system-wide service outputs rather than breaking performance down by specific service zones. So for infrastructure capacity, the analysis uses 5-year averages rather than single-year snapshots, which is a deliberate choice to smooth out any anomalies and reflect typical demand more accurately. So financial performance is assessed using audited statements with attention to trends over time rather than single-year results and benchmarked against both industry standards and regional comparisons. So with that foundation in place, I'll briefly note the city of Carlsbad findings before turning to the district. So the city was incorporated in 1952. It is now the 5th largest municipality in the county at about 39 square miles. It is home to approximately 116,000 residents and operates as a charter law municipality. As for key themes, in short, and as featured in the executive summary, Carlsbad has transitioned from a period of rapid expansion to one of stewardship. Population growth has slowed to under 1% annually. Development is approaching build-out under current zoning, and the city is in an exceptionally strong financial position. The report confirms the city is well positioned to continue delivering reliable services across its 5 evaluated functions, including wastewater, fire protection, parks and recreation, library, cultural arts, and community development throughout the foreseeable planning horizon. City-specific recommendations of note include boundary and governance considerations along the State Route 78 corridor and at the McClellan and Palomar Airport, both of which involve LAFCO follow-up. So with that, I'll shift focus to the Carlsbad MWD, which is the agency most directly relevant to this committee. So Carlsbad MWD was formed in 1954 as an independent special district. Following a 1990 reorganization, it became a subsidiary district of the city, with the city council serving as its board and staff integrated into the city's utilities department. This structure makes CMWD somewhat unique. It retains its own legal identity, taxing authority, and service boundaries, but operates with deeply integrated governance and administration. Understanding that distinction is central to the findings of this review. The draft evaluates CMWD's potable water function as well as agency-wide governance and fiscal considerations. So the analysis produced 8 themes, which I've organized into 4 overarching takeaways for the committee and on the screen. So the first involves its governance structure. CMWD is fully integrated with the city, which creates strong operational alignment and efficient service delivery. At the same time, CMWD maintains a distinct legal identity that carries real significance. It has its own taxing authority, separate service boundaries, and provides potable and recycled water to approximately 82% of the city. That distinction between what the city does and what the district does is not always visible to the public. And the review identifies that as an area warranting improvement. Second, involving system stability and capacity, the district operates with consistent financial and operational stability. Notably, CMWD maintains substantial unused system capacity, showing that it is well positioned to absorb future demand without near-term capital constraints. This is a meaningful finding in the context of regional growth pressures. So third, involving ratepayer value and service integration. CMWD's customers benefit from below average water rates compared to neighboring agencies. That competitive pricing is supported in part by the district's integrated management of both potable and recycled water, a structure that improves coordination and strengthens financial resilience. The recycled water program in particular represents a growing and strategically important service function that merits closer examination. And fourth, CMWD's financial foundation is solid. They have high reserves, low debt, and a track record of stable operations. Margins have narrowed slightly in recent years, which is not unusual for water agencies managing infrastructure age and rate pressures. So looking ahead, the key challenges include sustaining competitive rates, planning for infrastructure investment cycles, and improving how the district communicates its roles with public members. So based on these themes, we've identified 4 agency-specific recommendations. So the district should take concrete steps to improve how it communicates with the public through its website, meeting agendas, and budget documents, to clearly distinguish its separate legal status, taxing authority, and role as the primary provider of potable and recycled water in Carlsbad. Second involves LAFCO advancing its study schedule to conduct a thorough review of recycled water services. So this would examine current and future demand within CMWD's service area, evaluate coordination and potential overlaps with neighboring providers, and ensure that service boundaries support efficient regional delivery. So given the growing importance of recycled water to drought resilience and infrastructure planning, this is a timely area for LAFCO attention. The district currently holds latent authority to provide wastewater services, a power it has not yet activated. At the appropriate time, the district and LAFCO should jointly assess whether activating that authority could improve governance efficiency and service coordination, ultimately benefiting ratepayers. This is a forward-looking conversation, not an immediate action, but one worth placing on the horizon. I do want to know also the city provides wastewater currently to 82% of the city, and then the remaining 18% is provided by Lucadia Wastewater District or by Ceos Water District. And then lastly, based on this review, LAFCO should proceed with a limited update to reaffirm the district's current sphere of influence. So importantly, the update should also establish special study areas to reflect potential future boundary adjustments, particularly where the district and the city of Oceanside have overlapping service interests near the state route 70 corridor. And this approach preserves planning flexibility while providing clarity. So to summarize for the committee, Carlsbad MWD is a well-managed, financially stable special district delivering essential services to most of Carlsbad's residents at competitive rates. Its subsidiary structure is generally effective, but it does create some gaps in visibility and accountability that warrant attention. The 4 recommendations presented are intended to address those gaps, strengthen LAFCO's ongoing oversight, and position the district for its next planning cycle. As for next steps, the 45-day public review period is now underway and will conclude on May 29th. During this time, staff welcomes any comments or feedback on the draft. Just as a reminder, we're looking for committee input, whether that's general observations or formal recommendations on both scope and content of the draft, as well as opportunities to further strengthen the MSR program going forward. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Michaela. Mr. Healy.
Could have a question. So, the last meeting, I think it was, we went through a pretty long and onerous water rate discussion. Basically, with the outcome, yes, it was Tom, so it's onerous. And the outcome of that is, looking at a set unit of demand, so 5 units for everyone, doesn't give a full picture, right? Was sort of the takeaway from that. So for Carlsbad, it's fine because you go under that 5 units, single family, based on how they do fixed and variable costs, theirs come in below average. Higher use, that may not be the case, but it might. For Carlsbad, it's fine because they're saying, hey, they're lower than average. I guess the problem is using that format going forward, you're going to find some that are above average in that condition, maybe, but that doesn't really tell you much, except their water rates are above average under a single set of conditions. So it seems like if we went through this whole exercise to create kind of a more comprehensive thing to water rates, then we've sort of cycled back to just this one thing and drawing conclusions from something that as a group we sort of identified you don't really want to draw conclusions from. So that's just.
Yeah, so I was telling Tom, he get up there and say something, he says, I agree with him. So, yes, absolutely. The presentation that Tom provided, that you've all given feedback, and Tom actually went and gave a similar presentation to the full commission a meeting or 2 ago. That's on our mind. And going forward, that analysis will be reflected, but keep in mind, because of the way this study is structured in the 60-day administrative review that occurs before we come out publicly. This is a document that predates Tom's presentation, and the commission hasn't actually formally signed off on it yet. But to the point about when you look at rates, and I understand, Jack, you're appropriately saying, well, if you're highlighting the rate, there's so much that goes into it, we're not showing that context. Yes. And we want to get better at that, but for the time being, we still are trying to produce a public facing document, and that's still a number they expect us to show. And I think we can do this with your helpful reminder as we prepare a final adjusted and incorporate some of Tom's analysis so that there's context. So there's context.
Okay, yeah, or just soften, or maybe just softening the language a little bit, just to identify what that does show and what it doesn't in terms of,
Or just something to the effect, these rates based on the services provided and the infrastructure improvements needed, these rates are fair and reasonable.
Yeah.
As opposed to or another recommendation might be, we suggest that these rates be increased because they appear low, they don't cover future costs. I think that's kind of my interpretation of what Jack said.
Well said.
and then I did have one other, sorry, but in terms of activating latent powers for wastewater, is it the water district activating latent powers to take over the wastewater collections from the city?
Yeah, because as Michaela said, there are 2 different legal entities,
Okay.
the lens of LAFCO, so a question that it's really a question that we formed in a suggestion about latent powers is, why did the city choose to delegate water to this subsidiary and not both? Because when you look through the budget documents, they treat them as one kind of utility department, but they don't do it in the other perspective.
Got it. Okay, that makes sense.
My question was kind of a tangent off of the Mr. Kennedy's study was,
There was another component, if I remember correctly, that looked at the reinvestment in the infrastructure, and I think that's something that we need to make sure is also included, not just whether or not the rates are below average, but maybe the rates are higher because they are strongly reinvesting in their infrastructure and replacing it. So I just don't wanna forget that component, separate from the rates, is the whether or not the agency is reinvesting and replacing their infrastructure, because I think that's very important.
And because I know Michaela would offer this up. It is provided, the reinvestment ratio is provided in the financial section, but it's not incorporated when we talk about the fee, the rates themselves, so you can true that up and find.
Just so the members of the public are likely just going to read those first few pages, so, and they're not gonna I would assume they're probably not going to understand the details of the financial evaluation. So I think that's important to have a statement or a sentence in there that just is tied to the rate portion, especially if we're gonna start doing this for all the other agencies.
I got Paul and then Jeff.
Yeah, just great job, Michaela. Just to kind of piggyback a little bit on what Jack said, the context of the recommendation 3 for the late powers annexation, but that context was really taking stuff that's technically in the city, but really in the same department, and evaluating whether they should pull that into the municipal. Is that correct?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry, you didn't answer his question, I'm sorry.
Oh, I said yes.
Yes.
Oh.
I thought you were gonna go say yes.
I won't put you on the spot because mine's not a question. But, you know, I not surprisingly don't have anything to offer, an informed opinion on water rates. But from a political standpoint, I would agree from the first assessment that, the water district does suffer from an identity crisis. I lived in Carlsbad for 20 years. I did not know that it was provided through a special district, excuse me, a dependent special district, not independent. Because the bill comes from the city of Carlsbad. And also not mentioned is waste management. My bill included waste management. I don't know why that was not included does the Carlsbad Water District not also handle their waste management services?
They
Or is
used
that-
to, do you remember, because I'm a Carlsbad resident
Comes out on
too,
the same bill.
it used to be on the same bill and then they forgot to include it on the Liebenheim bills and so then they broke it.
Oh, I've been out in Carlsbad for 13 years, so I don't
Okay,
know.
yeah, it is now special and you pay directly to Republic.
To-
And the Republic,
Okay,
yeah.
so it's,
yeah, it is separate, but they used to bill, you are correct, through the Carlsbad municipal bill up until about 5 years ago. Okay. Also a very proud Carlsbad resident for many years as well.
raise my kids. So,
Same.
yeah. And actually, I think, you know, this is a little anecdotal, maybe it's empirical, but only my personal opinion. Our observation is their water rates were very fair. I left the city, I was paying $100 a month, and that included my trash. And not to, you know, not to slam Rainbow Water, which I'm a member of, but you know, I had 2.5 times the water usage moving to Fallbrook, and my bill was 6 times what it was. Now I understand I paid some taxes for the services as well, but overall, I was happy.
I think that goes to Jack's comment earlier, is that each member agency has a different average customer. And we tend to build our rates over our average customer, not the average customer in Carlsbad or Santa Fe. And so that's why the rate differential is so different, because our customers and the geography is different.
Well, and also if you get $12 million a year of developer fees, it helps.
It does.
Versus 10,000.
So I do have a comment. Excellent job on this. I'm also a Carlsbad resident for 30 years, and it is a very well-run organization. One of your recommendations was the dive into recycled water, and it only mentioned Carlsbad Municipal and Acadia. In North County, we have a North County Regional Recycled Coalition. We meet monthly, we go after grant funding. The intent was to look at treatment facilities and the need for recycled across jurisdictional boundaries. As such, in this one small area of southern Carlsbad, Oleven Heights, San Alejo, Lucadia, Vallecito, Carlsbad, all serve recycled water. And so my comment would be on page 73, 5.22, if you're diving into recycled water, don't just make it between Carlsbad and Lucadia, look at it broader, because we all coordinate together and we're all kind of intertied on recycled water. And maybe that can be something in the part 2 or something separate. Recycled water is unique in North County. We all help each other out as much as we can. So that would be my comment. Anyone else have any other comments? No? Okay, excellent job. Thank you very much. All right, with that, we have a special district spotlight.
Oh, is that me?
Yeah, a public utility district highlights of the accomplishment and current initiatives.
You have my presentation.
We don't all get avocados?
We can just run down the street and grab you something.
Okay, Kennedy's.
Yeah.
I have no, I have Ron, not today.
I'm partly responsible. I know I did promise at one point avocado toast if you all came to Fallbrook.
Yes.
And I did not follow up, so I will guarantee at the next meeting, if it is avocado season, I will bring,
Avocado.
I will bring avocado toast for you all.
Thank you.
First, thank you all for making it out here, and also everyone was here on time, which is unusual. Usually, the first time people come, they're 10 minutes late because they're getting. It's just off the freeway and it's not just off the freeway, so I'm proud of everyone for getting here on time. So I'm gonna just give an update on real quick, Fallbrook Public Utility District. You know, what do we do? We're water, wastewater recycled in Fallbrook. So, you know, like most water districts, why we're a public utility district versus water district. We were actually formed earlier than a lot in like the 20s, so there was sort of a short stint where you had public utility districts for some reason versus water district. Functionally, does it really make any difference? You know, theoretically, I guess we have activated late powers we could do for power, but we have no plan to do that. But otherwise, it's pretty much the same thing. But that's why just the timing of when it was formed. We've got a fairly large service area. We do have a lot of facilities for a pretty small agency. So we do have a UV disinfection facility because we have a large reservoir, uncovered finished water reservoir. We have very large, 300 million gallon reservoir, so a lot of storage. We have a groundwater treatment plant, so on the other end where I think we're gonna do a tour, if anyone wants to go on a tour after this. You know, then we do sewer within our service area. We have our own reclamation department that produces recycled water distribution system. We do have a big solar facility out there, and as of a month ago, we now also operate the reclamation plants on Camp Pendleton under an intergovernmental service agreement. So we just added about 14 people to do this intergovernmental service agreement with Camp Pendleton. I think it's actually the first intergovernmental service agreement on base, so it's kind of a newer thing. That grew out from the fact that the water we're getting from the groundwater treatment plant is actually from Camp Pendleton, so I'll talk about that. So, you know, where we serve the blue is kind of the Fallbrook Public Utility District service area, so that's, you know, where most things happen. And then you can see the red are the two facilities on Camp Pendleton, so pretty spread out, right? So one, there's a north tertiary treatment plant in the south, so up near San Clemente, and then down south by the Oceanside entrance. So, you know, what's some of the unique aspects of FPLAN? Like I said, we've been around for a long time, since the 20s. The district was originally formed, we actually got our water from the Santa Margarita River. There was just kind of a spot and there was a pump in there and it pumped the water out. And the San Luis Rey River. So we actually had well fields in the San Luis Rey River. Brought that up, even though that's outside of our service area. You know, then the imported water came in, there became water quality issues, and the Santa Margarita one flooded out, and then we were just on imported water. There actually is a very long water rights dispute between the United States versus Fallbrook Public Utility District. That is part why there is now a federally appointed water master for the Santa Margarita, it was Tom Kennedy. That actually grew out of USD Fallbrook. And there's actually a video called the Fallbrook story, so if you look it up online. They say it was directed by Frank Capra. It's sort of questionable, but he was on the FBUD board, but it is narrated by Cecil B. DeVille, so it's kind of a short, entertaining story. But essentially, the federal government said all this water is ours. There was a litigation about it, and that finally got settled not that long ago, where there's now an agreement they must send us a certain amount of water every year based on the water that finally settled that. So right now we're getting about half our water from the groundwater basin on Camp Pendleton. The other unique thing of that federal settlement agreement, so that agreement had to get signed off by DOJ and DOD, and so it took a while. The money we pay to Pendleton, a lot of that money actually sits in an account we hold on their behalf. And then they use that to do services on base. So that is in the federal settlement agreement, so. We're fixing a recycled water line right now under Vandergrift. So they will come to us with issues they can't manage to fix themselves that we will then help them with using essentially their money. So that's part of that. And then, we just took over operation of the water reclamation plants under an intergovernmental services agreement, which is a kind of a standalone thing the federal government can do that allows it to contract with public agencies adjacent to them under much more of a shared service agreement. So the agreement's only maybe 7 pages, right? With the federal government, usually they're 500. And it essentially sits like a standalone enterprise fund. They give us the money up front. We say, hey, we need this many people. They give us the money up front, and we basically work against that, account. And then the next year we go, hey, here's how much money we need. But for us, it was important, we go, federal government, we get the money first, right? We're not gonna start, if they don't give us the money, then, we're not gonna do the work. But that's how it's set up. I suspect it'll become a long-term, agreement just because they're not really structured to do municipal services. It's always a challenge for them. So it's a good partnership for us to kind of leverage, our capabilities with them. Small, spread some of the overhead costs across. The other thing you need to FBUD, if you drove up here from the south, maybe you drove by, some medians and downtown, there's some trees. FBUD is an unincorporated community in the county. It's not a city. There's no city of Fallbrook. So as Rachel can attest to, the amount of things here that are maintained by volunteers, the median is maintained by volunteers, the median, right? Because the county's thing is, here's your level of service. If you want more than that, sort of tax yourself or figure it out. So FBUD, the community came to FBUD to say, hey, people don't want to take a weekend to do weeding and trim trees anymore. The woman who's been doing it forever is 95, and we were still out there sometimes. So we actually did stand up with, with LAFCO, and Keene was very important in figuring out how to do this. This community benefit program, which basically reallocated existing property tax revenue. So we gave sort of this chunk of money to 2 projects that without this money, we're just gonna slowly kind of fall apart and integrate. So maintain some of these sort of aesthetic aspects that was really hard to get people to do. And then last, for people that have been around, is we are in San Diego County, but we do get our water from eastern, the San Diego County water. So that was it.
Yeah, let's have questions. Yes.
So one of the things you mentioned, Fallbrook is not incorporated, unincorporated, although there's a deceiving sign as you walk in from a realtor that says Fallbrook Incorporated, but then on the bottom it's incorporated reality. But my question is, because of the way the county over the last 5 years has followed state law, and there is less and less planned developments in the unincorporated area for various and probably good reasons. Has that induce any further discussion, as you could tell about, well, maybe incorporation is something on the minds?
So, you know, they tried it, they went to vote and it failed, before I was here. You know, I think with the current demographics in Fallbrook, I would say no. I think generally people are just, because you'd have to pay more to make that, right? If you're gonna stand up city services within Fallbrook and take over all that stuff, you would have to stand that up, and there would be additional tax base, and I don't think you would get that through. But there is sort of a change, you're seeing more families, so I wouldn't say now, down the road, maybe, you know, there could be sort of a CSD interim thing someday, maybe that people will go. You know, hey, why are we not seeing certain services, but I think right now, if you try to do it, it would not. You know, Rachel and I are gonna be involved. I think if you were to go out and ask people, they would go. You know, part of the problem too is, you know, the community benefit program. People don't understand how that's getting provided, like, so they're just saying, well, this is already here. What are you talking about? Why, you know, why am I gonna pay for something that I'm already getting without understanding? What's made that possible, maybe isn't sustainable, so. Maybe, but right now, I don't think. It would, I wouldn't suggest lack of.
Related question, so as general manager of a prominent unincorporated community, so you don't have a city council to interact with. What is the role and influence of, let's say, the local chambers here in terms of your, you know, your monthly operations, in terms of how you communicate public projects or future rate increases with?
Yeah, I mean, we, you know, our scope is still pretty narrow, right? So even community benefit program, the board sort of created a standalone committee to do that, so that all the functions stay sort of water, wastewater recycled. So we'll engage, you know, but our engagement is primarily, here's what we're doing on water rates. You know, this is what we're trying to do. We really don't get ourselves involved in things that are outside of, you know, our purview, or trying to direct that. We gotta keep it pretty focused. Can we get a tour of the water message? It's, yeah, it's right around the corner.
Thank you, Jack, appreciate that. Okay, any other questions? All right, we are now on to item number 6, which is commendation for committee members, Mark Roback and Mike Sims. Mark Roback, his bike died on the way up. No, I'm joking. I'm kidding.
He fell away.
No, Mark indicated he'll come at a subsequent meeting. He could not make it today. So we're gonna proceed with the commendation for Mike Sims. I understand this is your last meeting.
It is.
You have been retired for a year, but you're actually officially retiring on June 30th.
Correct.
All right, congratulations on your retirement, by the way. I'm gonna start with the official commendation, and then I believe Keen also has something, and I'd open it up for any committee members. So we actually do have an official commendation for you. It's unfortunately it's from me and Jack. But Priscilla did put it together. I'm not gonna read it all, but I am gonna do a couple of the whereases that you have honorably served on the committee for 6 years, which means you've survived the Keen years. You began in March of 2020, having been appointed as a representative, which means I appointed you. Back in the day, I did not realize that until I read this and I was refreshed, but as a representative of Bonita Sunnyside Fire Protection, in your capacity as fire chief, during your tenure, and I'm gonna offer, it says you provided guidance on the county service area number 135, public safety, fire protection, and emergency medical. You did way more than that. You were thoughtful on everything we did, from the detachments, from water MSRs, everything that this committee, and that's one of the things I like about this committee. It's fire, it's water, it's port, and we're not just in our specialty areas, but we're giving common sense. And I would offer that's one thing that you always offered was common sense, not just at this table, but in the friendship I developed with you over the last 6 years. So thank you for that. I do also need to point out that your fire service spans more than 35 years. I believe this morning you said 35.
Yes.
Close to 35 years, so thank you for that. And so upon announcing your retirement from fire service and then the committee, we extend our best wishes to you for your actual real retirement that's coming up. If you want to come on, make that thanks. Yeah.
Been a pleasure working with all of you. Appreciate it.
You want to stay on too? Okay.
First kids.
Right, thank you. And I do believe, Celine, you have a
Yeah,
presentation. Oh, there you
there
are.
I am, Chair Corner. So Mike, you, on behalf of the staff, we brought you a bottle of wine, as a token of our
I was wondering who that was for.
Mike, you've been, as the chair mentioned, a really steady contributor to all of these meetings. You're a very pleasant and friendly gentleman, but you also, when you want to say something, I think as a good fire chief, you know when to say it, and you know when you're being direct with us, and we always appreciated that quality about your viewpoint on advancing public good. So we certainly hope that we get to keep in contact with you. I will note, because you triggered a thought, Sheriff Corner, so when you appointed Mike, it was, I think, at our very last meeting, that infamous meeting right before all heck broke loose with COVID. And I remember, I got to meet you, Mike, and talk to you more through video, the first year or so, we were just doing the virtual meetings. You showed up, you were attentive, and you asked really interesting questions. And, the reality is, sometimes people don't ask a lot of questions, they just kind of look at us and they think, well, it's kind of an odd entity, But you always ask really interesting questions. It's a wonderful skill set. So I wanted to just acknowledge how much we appreciate all of your contributions. Look forward to working with you in whatever retirement capacities might bring you around. So on behalf of us, thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. And all kidding aside, came in when Keen kind of came in shortly thereafter, and you've been great for LAFCO, San Diego LAFCO. I remember going up to the Yosemite.
Yosemite, that's right.
For that whole conference, and was there to watch Don and Steve Abbott present about fire service centric stuff, and you were very open and amenable to those suggestions, and ultimately it kind of changed some ways that LAFCO operated. So we always appreciate your flexibility and efforts on all of our behalves. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So upon Mike's retirement and with our recent bylaws about balancing agencies, fire, water, north, south, I'm honored to announce that Mike Smith is going to be appointed to take Mike Sim. So it'll be really easy. It's a Mike desk. We don't have to change time on our committee. And if you haven't noted, I think you've come to a couple of the meetings now, so you're kind of already used to it. So welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. With that, we are on to committee member reports. Does anyone have anything that they would like to report? I kind of feel like maybe, yeah.
I'll report, yes. Just recently, in the beginning of the month, we completed our fleet electrification at Helix Water District. So our entire fleet is electrified, even though we can't get some of the vehicles. But we are doing some shared use with some other agency that needs to charge. You asked why would we do something like that? But we did get it 90% grant funded on about $11.5 million project, and it's done. It's ready to go, and we look forward to getting some more vehicles and heavy equipment that are electrified.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Any other committee reports, comments?
You guys may have read in the news, that we just finished up with our solar project at our treatment plant too, so that's gonna help offset. Over the payback period, over $4 million in electricity saving for our customers, so it's a good thing, so. The elected official were happy, so that's always good.
Anybody else? I would be remiss, if I did not point out that today is the last comment day. 15-day comment period on the CARB Advanced Clean Fleets for water, wastewater. Basically, all of us in the room except for fire, y'all are exempt. And the current rules, and I have to compliment CSDA, they have done an amazing job taking the lead on this, on press conferences, on outreach. But the rules as written, if these 15-day rules get adopted, so if you haven't gotten your letter in today, you're not a friend of mine, is that only 25% of our fleet, as water agencies, as wastewater agencies, would allowed to be exempt. And for any agencies, especially like mine, that's 70% and high or very high on the CAL FIRE map as far as fire goes, and with SDG&E turning off the power, we go week sometimes without power during these fires. It means only 25% of your fleet can ever be exempt for use in those emergencies. And I don't know of any agency that is capable of responding over huge areas, 48 square miles, with only 25% of your fleet. Additionally, there is a clause in there that we hadn't seen before that states that anybody you contract with also has to comply. And so think about all your contracts and the requirement to comply with it. So if you haven't got your letter in, CSDA has an amazing webpage. You just type CSDA CARB, it comes up, it has letters, it has all the information on it. Highly recommend it. Getting huge support from the fire department. Dave told me that if this goes into effect, he's gonna haul generators on the back of the fire trucks to charge our water vehicles so we can keep them in water. But even,
It'll look funny.
yeah, but even like Paradise Irrigation District got on there and talked about they don't need 25%, 100%, they need 125% of their fleet. And I believe even Helix sent vehicles up to Paradise during their fire to help them. So it's a huge important for this emergency exemption. So if you haven't commented, highly suggest follow CSDA's lead. Thank you, Chris Palmer, for all the work you're doing on that. Anyone else have any comments, anything going on at their agencies they want to talk about? All right, with that, we are on to,
one more thing.
oh, Mr. Kennedy.
Tom Kennedy for Priscilla, Power.
Did you get permission for that?
I didn't go to Keen, Keen asked her to come up and tell you that the Water Authority MSR is out as of yesterday online. This morning, okay, and so take a look at it. It also includes the Water Authority's responses, as I recall, and other pertinent information. And that Keen also wants to know that the San Diego LAFCO is all in, I think he said, on the Alliance for California Local Agency, what is it called? Commissions. Okay, so that's the alternative to CalAFCO, that's San Diego, LA, Orange, San Bernardino, with Riverside as a notable holdout. But that whole Keo is gonna get out of there sooner or later, I imagine, get moving forward with it.
Do you know when the Water Authority MSR comes to this committee?
I don't know, but I bet Priscilla does.
Thank you.
Great, thank you, Tom. We could actually, did that out loud. Yes, thank you very much, Jen. So, we plan on going to our commission May 4th to present the draft. It is on our website right now, so if you'd like to take a look, it's available. We are accepting public comments before or during, the hearing on May 4th, 8:15 sharp at CEC. And if the commission believes that we hit the mark, with respect to our analysis, then they will give us the green light on initiating a 45-day public review and comment period. And then during that period, we'll accept further comments from the public, and we will also make presentations to this committee here, so we may need to schedule a special meeting, but we'll coordinate and sure input that on your calendars if so. But for this committee, as well as our city's advisory committee, and that we can
ad hoc group. All to provide us with comments before we then see forward with presenting the final report to our commission for adoption.
I know it's not on the agenda for today. The last I heard, the Water Authority MSR was kind of frozen in time in 2023, and obviously a lot has happened since then. Is any of what has happened since then reflected in what's been released this morning?
I would say yes,
Yes,
so,
okay.
the reporting period itself, the answer would be no. But our executive summary does, provide such context to the developments that have occurred over the last several years. And the recognition of the leadership, from Dan Denham and his team. So I think that we definitely provide some narrative there to be able to contextualize the developments, but, the reporting period is what it is, and it is 15 years, and that's 23.
Thank you. All right, so it's out for public consumption, comments on the draft May 4th, it'll come back to this committee and that subcommittee at a later.
Yes.
Okay. All right, thank you. With that, we are on to the executive officer report. You're good? All right, anything else for the good of the order? We are adjourned and I believe we have a tour.
Yeah, so how many people, it's about a 10-minute drive. How many people are interested to go to the ground? Treatment plant?
How long's the tour?
This can be as short or as long as you want it to be. So we have not that many.